Welcome to the maiden edition of QTV's weekly roundup of the proceedings at the Trrc. Every Sunday, we'll bring you all the highlights of the testimonies being presented by the witnesses at the Commission. My name is Mboge. Joining me today on the panel is Mr. Ansumane Eso Nyasi. He's a QTV correspondent, one of the correspondents covering the event. And in the middle, I have the head of video documentation of the Trrc, Mboge. And on his right, I have Mr. Babakar Sise, who is also one of the correspondents covering the event for QTV. After 22 years of Jammeh's authoritarian rule, Gambians mustered the courage, the will, in the December 2016 presidential elections and booted him out democratically. The coalition of parties that had been put up to run against him had done its job. The ex-president graciously conceded defeat. Barely a week later, he withdrew the grace. The shenanigans that ensued, including the fatuous declaration of a state of emergency, raised the temperature of the nation. Thousands fled to Senegal, and the remainers stuck it out with dread, fear, and stocking up on food. On the eve of the expiry of his mandate, the president left on duress from the economic forces that had been poised to forcibly remove him. In January 19, 2017, Mr. Adama Barrow was sworn in Dakar, in the Gambian embassy in Dakar. But one of the issues that the government faced immediately was this: how do we deal with the numerous reports of torture, of disappearances, of extrajudicial killings and other human rights abuses during Yahya Jammeh's tenure? Shoving the whole issue under the rug was not an option. In a democratic culture, accountability is a prerequisite. In December 2017, the Trrc Act was passed in National Assembly, and it received its presidential assent in January 2017. Subsequently, 11 commissioners were sworn in, chaired by Dr. Lamin J. Sise, formerly a close confidant of the late Secretary General of the UN, Kofi Annan. A university professor, Dr. Babagale Jallow, was appointed its executive secretary. And Mr. Esa Fall, who had some experience at the ICC, the International Criminal Court at The Hague, was appointed the lead counsel. Then, on the 7th of January, the Trrc called its first witness. Now, gentlemen, welcome once again. The long-awaited Trrc, this has been perhaps one of the most talked about aspects of the new administration's agenda. Mboge, you are the head of video documentation at the Trrc. How do you see the coverage so far? In fact, what is so distinctive about this Trrc, I wonder?
Thank you very much. I'm glad to take part in this panel discussion by QTV, who's actually a partner of the Trrc, a media partner. When we talked about the events that are taking place right now at the Trrc, we also talked about the coverage of it. How would we get to inform the people about what is going on here? Okay, so we know we can do that through so many means: newspaper, radio, television, online. So what we said was, looking at the other commissions, notably the Jammeh Commission, where journalists were allowed to go and take their camera in and record the proceedings. We thought that the kind of commission that the Trrc is not that kind of media scrum that would help it. So we thought we should limit the media presence inside this hall in terms of cameras, in terms of, that would interfere with the truth-telling that was supposed to start here. So, that being the case, we decided that we would arrange to have one media coverage that would feed everybody else. So we wanted to do it ourselves. That was why I was brought in. But certainly, the institution was not prepared technically to get that going because it would require simultaneous filming and broadcasting. So we thought the best was to invite all those who are in this business to tell us how they would be able to give us that service, the technical service of covering what's happening here and feeding to everybody else. And that's how we got tenders from all the others, including GRTS and KOTV, and we all had their presentations. And then we came to shortlist the two main broadcasting institutions, that was GRTS and KOTV. And we decided it was better to go for KOTV, and we went in for KOTV, and that's how we started the broadcast during the first week. But in the beginning of the second week, we invited GRTS to also bring their cameras in, which was something we wanted to limit as much as possible. But here it's the national broadcaster, and they wanted to do their own coverage. So we say, okay, come in here, we'll manage the way we are going to have it here without interfering with what's going on in here. So your camera people have to carry themselves in such a manner that they don't disturb or interfere with things that is going on here. And they all agreed, and that's how we're covering it. The effect of it is that once we cover it, we broadcast it as QTV is doing live. When it's live, it becomes one of the first truth commissions around the world that has been projected live as it happens. And from what I hear, not only are people watching it in Gambia, Africa, or Europe, they are watching it all over the world. And that is possible because we have a partner that is on satellite, that is accessible to most parts of the world. So the effect is that we are enjoying a lot of viewership in terms of what's going on here, and that what people get out of it is people's individual opinion. But certainly we are able to project exactly what is happening in here, the mood and everything onto the screen for people.
Yes, and I understand that this is actually the sixth such truth commissions established in Africa, but you're saying the first to be televised live.
Absolutely.
So in other experiences, they were all recorded?
They were all recorded, and snippets of it were shown, but not as it happens. So when you show it as it happens, it means we are not tampering with it. People are saying exactly what they are saying when they are saying it as you hear it. So it's perfect. It's
reality TV?
It is. I wouldn't call it that because it's a very serious matter.
Because it's absolutely serious.
It's really.
It still has the powerful.
Absolutely. The images are powerful, and the sound bites are as well powerful.
Yes.
And the challenge also is that because of the Trrc and its act, certain testimonies can either be heard anonymously or said anonymously, and others can be said online. So during the course of the hearings, we will see all of those things as more and more people will come out to really testify.
Yes, it is quite common in such commissions to give evidence in camera.
Absolutely.
Isn't it? Where nobody,
absolutely.
you wouldn't reveal your identity
In
for
fact,
security reasons.
In camera means people will not actually even know whether what happened. It is the explanation that is held on later. But here, what we do is, it's not in camera. We are distorting the voice of the person, because you will know the person is speaking, and you will know what he is saying, or he or she is saying, but you won't be able to really be sure who it is.
Yes.
And that is one way of encouraging people to come out and say what's in their heart.
Yes, this is very true. And Sumana, I wonder if you've been following how this event here has been covered with the international papers or online papers. Have you been, or news outlets generally?
Well, thank you, Mr. Mboge. First, I have been involved in covering almost all the three commissions that we have, from the Commission of Inquiry to the Constitutional Review Commission, and now the Trrc. And I can tell you that the Trrc put in, its first week has garnered now more attention than any other commission in this country. And that tells you how much interest Gambians and even non-Gambians, you know, from within the Gambia here and even beyond, have, you know, towards this commission. It's not easy, you know, to dig into events that, you know, might have happened from 23 years ago down to 2017. It's really not easy. And remember, these are things that many people went through, and having to come out in public and narrate your ordeal, narrate what you've been through, you know, is really not an easy thing. But this is an important commission, and like I said, Gambians have so much interest in this commission. You can see the reaction if you go online, and even, you know, from outside, you know, it has a huge following, and you have a lot of people that have interest in this commission.
Yes, thank you. Babukar,
yes, Mr.
what has been your impression?
Yes,
you know,
I'm really impressed because people in the Gambia here and people abroad, Gambians abroad, and even non-Gambians are keenly following the commission. And probably other countries as well, because you never know what will happen. We have other countries who are actually right now facing the same situation that the Gambia faced before. So learning lessons is very important here, and then people are watching. For example, you know, I know, like I got a call from Switzerland, and somebody said, I'm watching it live on QTV. And also somebody said, we went to Sierra Leone, and then he was at the president's office in Sierra Leone, and they were watching, you know, the commission or QTV. So obviously the reception outside is very good. But just as Mboge said, I mean, bringing it live is very, very crucial here, because, I mean, not to tamper with the evidence, or probably something's happened, and if edited and replayed again, people will say probably they remove this thing or remove that thing. And then also, playing it live will avoid rumors, because if recorded, people are not aware. The next minute, before it will be played again, people started spreading rumors of what didn't happen. But because it's live now, I mean, nobody will inform another person about what didn't happen. Everybody has seen it at once, and then that's it. So the reception is excellent, and, you know, I've been following our Facebook page and also on YouTube, and obviously, you know, the viewers are tremendous.
Yes. Yeah. So the novel live coverage, perhaps complemented by the novel of the motto, "Never Again." And we had Dr. Jala telling us that the concept, our TRR's, I think, concept here wants to establish, to come up with a system, with a structure, absolutely, whereas we will put in place certain mechanisms so that this sort of the kind of barbarism that we are investigating now would recur. That was a fantastic, maybe perhaps one might say a bit idealistic.
Exactly.
What do you
Actually,
say?
what happened is, the TRRC has two components. There's the component of the testifying part, where people will come in here and, you know, ask questions so that we can dig up the truth. But there's also the Never Again campaign. The Never Again campaign is taking place in schools and communities all over the world, all over Gambia, sorry. We have teams that are out there who are going to schools, and speaking about what's going on right now, and talking to school children about the necessity to, you know, not to avoid what these people are being accused of right now in future. So it's the Never Again campaign that will help us, after all is said and done, to have a Gambia that will never see the kind of human rights violations that we are now hearing about. We want it not to happen again in the Gambia. And that should be done, that can only be done when we carry out a campaign, but not just thinking, okay, people can see what's happening, so I'm sure they're learning something from it. No. We go out there and we take up the issues, and we talk to communities, and we talk to schools about what is going on and what they should avoid doing when they grow up.
Thank you very much. I think that is the right moment where we should go straight now to our first witness. Our first witness on the 7th of January was Mr. Ibrahim Chongan, former IG of police. I think we should actually have an excerpt to hear him speak. Actually, what we want the viewers how we are going to treat the whole avalanche of information at our disposal. We want to discuss this thematically. First, we will discuss the background we are taking our cue from the TRRC process itself. So we will take look at the background leading to July 22nd, 1994. And then we will look at, on that day itself, on July 22nd, 1994, what happened. And then we'll look at post 22nd, what happened to all these actors, as it were. So we'll have our first excerpt and see what Chongan had to say, what Chongan and Sheriff Gomez had to say on this.
The gendarmerie then continued to develop. At that time, we only have the mobile gendarmerie. Basically, we were guarding, the then president was guarded by the Senegalese gendarmes. And then up to, as I indicated earlier on, in 1988, we created the territorial gendarmerie so that the gendarmerie expand. And the GNA also continued to expand. Then they had some officers who were my squad mates that went to GNA with Colonel Naunjai, like Major Mboge, like Major Mboge. Major Mboge was the 4th Battalion commander. Major Mboge, they were the 1st company commanders. And that's how they grow from company to battalion. And then we continue. Then 1990 came at the ECOWAS summit here in Kairaba, where I was privileged to be the Joint Ops Commander, commanding the Army, the Police, and Gendarmerie for the security of the heads of state. And there, the West African heads of state decided that they will send a force to Liberia, that is ECOMOG. And so now our army is the first time they're going for peace enforcement. This was not peacekeeping, this was peace enforcement. And now they went to Liberia, and now they have seen their battle hardened, and they came back, and we started to have some mutinies.
We'll come back to the issue of Yahya Jammeh, but I just wanted to ask a question regarding the situation at the time, including while the Nigerians were around. We understand that there are complaints about Nigerians taking command positions. Also complaints about the lack of facilities, complaints about the pay. Were these things that you were aware of?
No, I was not aware of these complaints. For me, Nigerians coming in was beyond soldiers to decide. That was not their role, it's not their function. It was the function of the civil authority that was there at the time. That was their job. If they feel it fit to do that, that was good. Because yes, the British were here, they didn't have command role. But we all know the influence that they held at the time, the advices that they give, the control that they had, that was there. But yes, for me, Nigerians coming in, I think was a blessing in disguise for the army.
Yes, gentlemen, we've just heard there Chongan, Ibrahima Chongan, who was Deputy IG of Police in 1994, and Sheriff Gomez, who was an adjutant. This was quite interesting. One of the first themes that emerged was the presence of the Nigerians here. Eso, give us a little bit of background. You were covering it. Give us a little bit of background of what was the feeling like from the testimony so far about the Nigerians being here.
Well, I think Chongan has given us at least a shocking, background of the Gendarmerie, and the army as well when the Gendarmerie was disbanded, and leading up to the invitation of the Nigerian commanders who were here at the time. From his testimony, I covered it. The Nigerian commanders that were here at the time were the ones responsible for overseeing, daily activities, as far as the Gambia National Army is concerned, and they were the ones commanding everything. So their juniors, their second in command were Gambians, and you had all of them at one office in Banjul, and the platoon commanders, which was led by junior officers, they were the ones in charge of the platoons and, the soldiers at the barracks as well. And at the time, our Gambian soldiers were not happy. Some of them, there was of course some that were disgruntled for some reason. They were not happy with the way Nigerians, there was that preference. They feel that Nigerians, were given more treatment. They were enjoying more privileges, at the time. And some of them also felt that it wasn't fair to have foreigners, leading them in their own country. They complained about their working standards. They complained, that the food they were given, at the barracks wasn't good enough. They complained of the transportation. They complained of their salaries. So there was at least some form of discontent within, some of the soldiers, but it was at the junior level, and that also contributed to the first mutiny which took place, which he ended, in the first part of his testimony. So it kind of gave us that background, as to what led to the first mutiny, and then the second, which eventually turned into the military takeover.
Yes, and Babakar, surely one understands the disaffection. Imagine the conditions, hardly any transport, inadequate, the housing, even their food. It was all quite dreadful. And suddenly you bring in these Nigerian soldiers and giving them certain privileges. One certainly could understand the disaffection amongst them.
Yes, Mr. Mboge, we are talking about Nigerians here, but I think Nigerian is the second part of the problem. I think the first part of the problem is the gendarmerie from Senegal, because that was the first thing. I think our soldiers feel that although these people are brought in probably to help train, but I think they felt that these people are occupying forces, kind of, and then it's like they are doing their job for them. They feel that they are Gambian, probably, and they should have taken those roles, to solve their own, to train themselves and lead the country. But then, imagine when according to testimonies, when the Zandam were here, it's the same role they played as the Nigerians. They occupied all the top command, and then also the gendarmerie from Senegal were even at State House, even guarding President Jawara, not our own people, according to one of the testimonies. They were even guarding the president, if we hear about Chongan's report there. And then when probably that was during the Confederation, Senegambia Confederation, I think that's when the Zandam came in here, and then when the Zandam left again, instead of the government putting our own people in charge, again they brought in Nigerians. And then according to the testimony, it happened at a time when Nigeria was going through military rule, dictatorship, Nigeria. So obviously, I think it's not a good example to bring soldiers from a country experiencing military rule and bringing them into the Gambia. It might change the mindset of our own soldiers. What are they going to tell them about Nigeria? Not democracy, because if a country is toppled and they bring military, they are not going to talk about democracy. So obviously, I think one of the testimony you hear somebody saying that, if some things happen, the Nigerian soldiers will actually tell our own soldiers, if this was in Nigeria, we have done with it, we have finished it, or we have done this. So obviously, that was changing the mindset of our people gradually. And then at that time also, again, poor food, poor housing, and our military, we are watching, because Nigerians, when they came in, they were actually happy. Flashy cars, good housing, good food, and they were enjoying at some level. And our own people were standing by the roadside asking for lift to go to work. Nigeria, we are commanding everything. So obviously, this caused a lot of discontent within our own people, and obviously, and the soldiers we are watching. But then I think also there was some kind of a collaboration between our top command at that time and the Nigerians, because I think somebody mentioned that, because it's like the junior officers are the ones who are mostly affected, because they are the ones who staged the coup, if you look at it. Why is it that the senior officers didn't do it? It's like probably they have been conniving with the Nigerians, or they are getting some kind of, favors from them. I don't think they are feeling the same way, like the way the juniors were feeling at the time. Well,
remember, according to Kante, one of the witnesses, according to Kante, he felt, this was his view, he felt that the senior officers were sucking up to the Nigerians, hoping that when they left, then they would take over. And isn't it quite interesting, having said that, it was Chongan, you're basically talking about Chongan, he felt that it was a political mistake. It was a mistake for the Nigerians to come. But again, how do you contrast that with what Sheriff Gomez said, and said the Nigerians, they were here. It was a blessing in disguise. It was a good thing to have. So already we're beginning to see some mixed reactions, if you like, to the Nigerians being here. I wonder, would you want to come in here?
Let's look at their ranks. What rank was Chongan and what rank was Sirif at the time?
Yes.
Who was senior and who was junior? Because the senior would be collaborating with the Nigerians. But the junior, obviously, so the two testimonies would change in this aspect because, I mean, the senior would have been collaborating, but the junior one, we are discontented. So I believe that was the problem.
Ibu, you want to come in here?
Actually, I could not really fathom the rationale of the Jawara government for doing what they did at the time. You just don't have an army where every department is headed by a Nigerian and assisted by a Gambian. All the ranks in all the departments of the army, according to what they said. So for me, it was a recipe for disgruntlement in the army. Certainly, the political government of Sadauda should have known that there's no army in the world, like one of them said. If they had left it that way, perhaps one day we would have a non-Gambian to become our president. Because that was how high they have come up to becoming, you know, what our own people should be. Yes. So for me, definitely that was a recipe for disgruntlement. And also, if what you said actually is true, that the senior ranks were sucking up to the Nigerians.
That was according to Kante.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Hoping that when they leave, they will take their places. I guess that was really, really very sad. And for the junior staff, that's really, really not encouraging at all. And I'm not saying they were justified in taking over, but at least there was a genuine reason to become disgruntled.
Yes, yes. And when we go back to Chongan, let's just have a little background, a brief background about the Gendarmerie was established in 1982, wasn't it, as a result of the confederation with Senegal. It was here first. And then when the confederation broke up, then the Gendarmerie's position became iffy. Then we brought in the Nigerians who had no culture of gendarmerie. So this was the thing. Then it was forced for the gendarmerie to merge with the police. Eventually, that was really what happened. Absolutely. But this was Chongan's thing. The initial concept was for the gendarmerie to become a counterweight to the national army. But again, when it was essentially emasculated, as it were, that was what opened the ground, and then compounded with the fact that the senior cadre of the National Army were in Banjul. Then it opened the way. What do you say?
I think before the coming of the Nigerian commanders, you know, when the Gendarmerie was disbanded, remember, Chongan even made mention of this in his testimony, that the Gendarmerie is a French concept. And when the Confederation broke out, you know, that was when the British soldiers came first. It was the British training group that first came, because they now want to change the concept, you know, because it's a French concept, and, you know, some of them were struggling within. So after the British left, that was when the Nigerians were brought in, you know. And then when the Nigerians came, you know, remember, then they had two subsequent coups. First it was Babangida, and then Abacha, you know. So they were not used to working under a democratic government, you know. These are soldiers, and like Ibu Wage said, you know, earlier, when Gambian soldiers have issues, you know, democratic governments, you know, there are procedures, you know, with whatever you want to do. And they were not used to that. And they will always tell their Gambian counterparts, if this was in Nigeria, we'll do it our way, you know. And that also kind of influenced some of them, because they realized, in fact, you'll be surprised that after the first mutiny which took place, when they were intercepted at Denton Bridge, they had this meeting with the president, and they were assured that your worries will be taken care of. Now, unfortunately, that didn't happen. And Chongan also, in his testimony, did also alluded to the fact that there was some kind of a disconnect between the political leadership and the junior officers at the time, because they were directly linking with the Nigerian commanders. So there was not that connection, that relationship, at the time. And remember, we Gambia at the time had a permanent secretary for defense, but not a minister of defense. So you can see that, administrative, failures that we had at the time, institutional failures we had at the time, And also, not just that, we also at the time used to have the Security Council that was formed in the aftermath of the first mutiny. Now, surprisingly, the Security Council never met, So these are all some of the institutional failures that happened at the time. And I think they actually serve us as a recipe to what was to become afterwards.
And there was something else, Babukar, the Liberian contingent. And I sort of, in a sense, I liked Chongan's anecdote that when they were about to leave, he went to his father, he was happy, he was chuffed that, suddenly our people, our forces were going to see battle, they were going out, the romanticism of being a soldier, I suppose. He wished that he had been there. Then apparently his father looked at him and said, "You're very excited about all of these things, but when they return, they'll be different. The first mutinies whereby the Liberian contingent, apparently, as we're getting now from the witnesses."
That's important there. That point is very important, because I think going to Liberia has actually molded, our armed forces at the time, because they went to Liberia. You remember when he said when they came back, they were battle hardened. Yes. Obviously, they have gone through a lot of things. They've seen death itself. They've seen dead bodies, atrocities, everything committed. We've seen Liberia, what happened there. So obviously, when they came back, I think that going to Liberia, the first trip was, that was an eye-opener for our soldiers to see what actually war is like, what actually happened. And then that actually changed them. And then going into a condition like that, war, where some of them probably died, and some came back with injuries, serious injuries. And then you come back, and the next minute, you don't have allowances. And even before you go, you were not properly taken care of, and you came back from Liberia, a war-torn country, and then your allowance is not paid. I think that's very painful. So we have to look at also, that aspect of it, what made them actually annoyed, and that brought the first mutiny.
Yes.
And
there were subsequently others, and then crucially, pivotally, Kudang, April, May 1994.
Yes.
When they had that exercise
Kudang
with the Nigerians, when a group stood back and said, we had to do something about it. So this was the germ of what was to evolve later into a real plot.
The Kudang meeting, I think that is where it all started. It was started by Edward, and then he invited some colleagues. They had this meeting. And they were looking at ways to address some of these challenges that they're faced with. And then they came to the conclusion that the only way we can solve this problem, the only way we can have our worries taken care of, is to overthrow the government. And they were looking at different options. Do we do this aggressively? Do we resort to the peaceful way of doing it? What exactly do we do? And then there was, different suggestions. Others suggested that, okay, let us seize the president, let us arrest him let us find a way to get hold of the president, probably kidnap him or something like that. And you realize that afterwards, in Chongan's testimony later, Suarez, you realized on the 21st, a day before 22nd, that was the plan. So among the suggestions also was to arrest all the senior top officials, government officials, and execute them. I think that suggestion, according to Kante, was brought forward by Edward. And you also had others suggesting that probably we can just embark on a mutiny, and then we will see what will happen afterwards. So these were some of the most prominent suggestions that were advanced at the time.
Yes, so first it was Kudang, but then the idea of a coup had not quite hatched. Yes. It was simply a matter of how to get rid of these Nigerians. And some of them, for instance, with Kante, he felt that they were substandard. They didn't have quite the same professionalism, for instance, that he had experienced. He had gone to Sandhurst, so he was judging them differently. But at Yundum, the Yundum barracks afterwards, about 3 weeks later, he said, a few weeks later, at Yundum barracks, that was where, yes, they planned on, wasn't it, going on an adventure? Wasn't it the term? It seems that was the term for the coup. It seems that that was the pivotal moment to have a change of government.
Yes, Kudang is very pivotal here,
yes,
to be honest, because the plan was actually cooked in Kudang. But then Kante, as you know, disagreement, let's execute, I mean, our commanders and ministers, and then Kante said no. According to him, he said no. And if you listen to his testimony, it's like because of that disagreement between him and Edward Singate, I think they sidelined him, per se, because it's like he didn't know that the coup was taking place on the 22nd. I think they must have said, this man is not actually adhering to what we are saying, let's put him aside. But also, you know, when they came back from Kudang, they held another meeting at Yundum.
That's it.
And then that's where they actually planned everything, you know, according to what they are going to do, you know. So it's very important here because what they were saying was Ghana-style coup. That was what he put it. But
yes,
then,
the two camps that emerged from Kudang,
yes,
apparently one camp wanted a Ghana-style coup where
yep,
the ministers and senior officials will all be executed.
yes,
And of course, the other camp said, no, that's a bit macabre, we are not going to go there. But all the same, they had moved on.
yes.
So apparently from what we are getting so far, it was planned for on the 21st.
Actually, for that 21st,
yes,
now I come back to the laxity of the then government of Sadauda Kairaba Jawara. They suspected something to be carried out by some junior officers. On that particular day, when the president arrived, there was no formalities. From the plane straight into a vehicle and off he went. And these people who were suspected, including these Yaya Jame and Edward Singate, were disarmed. Okay? You suspect something, and you disarm those who you suspected something, who are about to do something, like taking over a government or killing the president. At that time, perhaps they didn't know what the intention were. But suddenly, why let them go scot-free? Not because that's what they did. They just took them to the camp and asked them to stay in the barracks. So these people, they knew that if they had not done anything, they were going to come back for them. And what they planned to do was not, I can tell you, from what I suspect at the time, was not to take over a government. They wanted to make their grievances known to the president.
But Kante tells us that in Yundum, they decided that really, in order to get rid of the Nigerians, they had to get rid of the government. So the idea of coup d'etat, of getting rid of the government, was first mooted, they said, at Yundum. Yes. So the idea had gone through their heads.
But taking over the government, in my own judgment, really was made easy by Sadauda vacating the State House and going into that Lamond boat.
Yes.
If Sadauda had stayed at State House, they wouldn't have carried out a coup, yes, in my judgment.
Absolutely. And
because they were not prepared for that. They were not prepared for a confrontation with the president. They were prepared for a confrontation, but not a coup d'etat. Perhaps give us our dues and stuff like that, and he would succumb and then give them money or something like that. But certainly it was not to take over. You can hear from their testimonies that once they got into the State House, they were surprised. They lay on Sadauda's bed and sat on his sofas. Mm-hmm. So this is something that perhaps was really out of the reach for them.
Absolutely. And for us here, I think Kairaba Jawara's book, Sarara Kairaba Jawara's book, Kairaba, is a very interesting, yes, a very interesting reference point. Absolutely. Because he said that when he disembarked the plane on the 21st, he saw that there was a lot of excitement, agitation in the air. Exactly. Even to play the bugle for him to do his parade, it was all quite funny. Mm-hmm. But then, according to Sadauda, his vice president was not there. Even though when Suare under questioning said that he thought that the vice president was there. Then Sadauda went home. They always had debriefings. On his way home, but there was Hassan Jallo who welcomed him at the airport. But before he got to State House, Hassan Jallo had broken off. He's the current CJ, broken off elsewhere. He was baffled by it. What do you think was going on there?
I think
strange.
They all were jittery, knowing that some people have been disarmed and knowing what their possible intentions were. So I'm not saying somebody did not know something.
But imagine that the vice president didn't know that these people were going to be disarmed beforehand. You see, you can only get there to see the disarming unless one must have heard certain rumors, because we knew afterwards that there were rumors circulating. Even Jawara made it clear in his book. There were rumors circulating of a plot to coup.
Let's remember that we have only heard from 3 people so far.
3, 4. Yes,
we're going to hear a lot of more versions of the same thing from different, or let me say, different angles of the same story from different people that are going to be testifying in future.
Mm-hmm. And yes, what do you make of it?
I think there are 4 key moments that led to the takeover. I'll of course subscribe to the idea that had he stayed at the State House, it could have been a different story. Maybe the mutiny could have been quelled. First, there were rumors, according to the witnesses we've had so far, there were continuous rumors of a potential coup. Now, my question is, I mean, any serious army or intelligence or government, I mean, wouldn't joke with that. You would act fast. I mean, there were continuous rumors of a potential coup. Exactly. Now, but not much was done about that. Exactly. And also, soldiers that were disarmed at the airport were allowed to go. They were left to go back. All they were asked to do was go back to the barracks. Now, you disarm someone that you've suspected of planning a coup or plotting to overthrow your government, and you let them walk scot-free. That I couldn't comprehend. And the other one was Suare, who was head of the tactical support group. He was assigned to go to the bridge, confront these soldiers, if possible, intercept them in any way possible. In fact, I remember he said the instruction that he received from his superiors was shoot to kill if necessary.
We'll come to that.
No, just to give you, I'm just touching some of the key moments I think resulted to this. Yes. And also the decision to have Sadauda leave the State House. I think these are 4 key incidents for me that I think actually, contributed to the takeover.
Yes, and Babukar, the reason why earlier on I said that the whole thing was a bit puzzling was that we know that Jawara, when they told him that we were going to the American vessel, he said, what vessel?
Exactly.
That is absolutely
and then they said to him,
unbelievable.
And then they said to him, it's for the security of your family. Mm-hmm. That's all they said to him,
yes,
to secure you and your family.
Yes. So Babukar, what do you make of that? The fact that the commander
of the armed forces
didn't know
that was. So that means Jawara didn't know a training exercise was supposed to take place between our Gambia armed forces and the Americans. That's very interesting because I don't know who organized the training. But I will take you a little bit back. I think there are 2 chances that the government missed, and those are crucial chances. Because first, airport, rumors, disarm them, take their probably guns or remove their ammunition, and you let them go back to the barracks where the armories are. Remember, small arms you intercepted at the airport. The armory is back there. And then, I think at that night itself, they held a meeting again to discuss because no one was arrested. And the second chance that they missed was when that early morning, when that problem started at Yundum barracks, before they left, I think when one of them was arrested, the guy with the keys for the armory, Sirif. Yes. When Sirif was arrested, put lock up in the guard room, obviously the rumors was already rife in town that there is a coup. And where was the government at that time? Jawara was a State House, people are there, but they were taking up positions instead, and then the coup could have quelled before these people even started marching, going towards Banjul, because they were at the Yundum barracks at the time. So where were the Nigerians at that time as well? I wonder.
What I find very interesting, actually, is how the defense minister, who was the vice president at the time, wasn't at the airport? That's one. And how comes the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, the president at the time, wasn't aware of the presence of the ship, of the vessel rather, at the port, and also he wasn't aware as commander-in-chief of the armed forces of the military exercise, training exercise that was supposed to take place between the Gambia armed forces and the American soldiers. So this I find quite disturbing.
Let's hold the disturbance for now. We'll go on a short break. See you in a while.
From an early age, we value the feeling of speed, the thrill of the wind as we rush to our destinations, the feel of our feet bounding over the ground, the way the world blurs as we rush by. Faster, faster than a ray of light, I'm flying. I have one speed, I have one gear. Keep on moving, I won't stop till I get there. Want to experience speed? Then subscribe to the Gambia's 4G LTE Mobile Network, QCell. With speeds of up to 45 megabytes per second, you can get online in the blink of an eye. The fastest browsing, stream videos faster, do much more faster. Just dial *335# to join the fastest club. QCell's 4G LTE Mobile Network. Go faster. For more information, call 111. QCell, Senior Boss. We innovate, others follow.
There's a drive within us, a powerful force that keeps us going. It keeps us excited as we live, feel, and touch what we desire. Humans are social in nature. Contact is a daily activity that we find hard to live without. Showing care and consideration for people, their values, cultures, perspectives, beliefs, needs, and feelings will bring the best out of them and their societies in general. The drive to attain great feats and realize our goals gives birth to different means of getting from point A to B, giving life a more positive feeling of wanting to push ahead with something, making it safer and secure. Discipline leads to consistency, bridging our goals and accomplishments. Discipline develops focus. A steady mind that results in development and growth, equipping us to better overcome barriers, giving us a better chance to raise the standards of our living and society. Reliability, delivery, and meeting up to expectations leads to our prosperity and paves the way for tomorrow efficiently.
Today's world is a global village. Every day, something new happens. We innovate and aspire to reach others to follow. Dial *323#. QMoney is QCell's mobile money service and is now on the move, going regional. With QMoney, you can send and receive money, buy credit, buy QPower, make payments, pay bills, and much more. QMoney, Sunyu Kalpe.
So, on the 21st, Jawara went to sleep. In spite of all the anomalies he had seen, he went to sleep. But the protagonists, the plotters, had not. They met that night for the following day. Now, we'll go to December, up to July, 22nd itself, and listen to this excerpt.
I always leave early. I left my quarters, Fajara Barracks, around 7 o'clock or so, and then I was being driven to Banjul to go. And whilst I was being driven, that time we just had this mobile phone, those bricks we used to have. I received a call from the station officer, Anthony Correa. I think he's now a superintendent in the police or chief. And he told me, sir, there is a problem at Yundum Barracks. It seems that there is mutiny and they've had some shots. And then I rang off, and then a couple of times I had another call from Captain Wilson. He was also in the military. And he told me in Aku language, you know, I no join. I say, well, you don't do what? You don't join what? He said, I'm not part of it. I say, okay. So I went to headquarters and reported to the IG. And then the Inspector General told me this mutiny is on, but he has ordered Chief Superintendent Jaune, who replaced me at Fajara Barracks when I went to police, that to deploy the tactical support group. So the tactical support group, a unit was deployed at the bridge, and we thought that like twice the army came and we stopped them, but this time it became more serious. So when the tactical support group were deployed at Denton Bridge. So, and the Inspector General told me, all right, we deploy the police unit. So I assembled all the police officers at police headquarters, and downstairs I gave them an address and tell them that this thing is happening, but we should be loyal to the government. We should defend the Constitution at all costs. But it was difficult. The weapons, we didn't have the good weapons. We had very old weapons. But nevertheless, then that time, Jibril Diouf, Superintendent Jibril Diouf, who would later become the IG and an ambassador under Jammeh's government, was OC Banjul Division. So I gave him orders, and I told him, okay, you deploy some men at Gambia High School, and then we deploy the other men at the junction of Radio Seat and Bond Road, so that we can set up ambushes. So after that, I told the Inspector General, you know, I'm not going to even stay here. I have to go to the ground to find out what is happening. So I went to the bridge, met the tactical support group there, and told them the same. We had orders from the IG, if necessary, shoot to kill. And then we were there, and something very dramatic happened, where there was, so the TSG guys, one of them, I can't remember the name, he was in our communication room in Fajara Barracks, and he radioed me and said, sir, they've attacked the barracks and they will capture the communication room very soon. So then I gave orders. I said, you know, everybody radio silence, no more communication, because obviously if we communicate, we would be, the army, the rebels at the time will hear what we are saying.
We needed some of those weapons, especially the 80mm mortars, you know, and some GPMGs, and so that I can train my men on those weapons. But he categorically refused that those weapons are meant for the army, and it will remain for the army. And well, one can tell you that I was born in 1956. Then in 81, I was not a kid. I could recall what happened in 81. I have seen what happened in 81. Those who sacrificed their life, what happened to their families after 81. And all what happened, I was present. I was here in 81. So that's why I say it's strategic. It was a strategic decision, and my decision was not to be part of the coup. If it was, I was going to, the way I became the leader, I could have been the president if I wanted to, if I was part of the coup. Because I will not accept my second lieutenant or a lieutenant to be my commander when I was in the cooking. Because I knew that what I was expecting to have help, and the only help that I was expecting is from the Marine unit. I knew the Senegalese will never come again to help.
Gentlemen, we've just heard the testimonies of Chonga and Suare there. The command was shoot to kill. And it seems as if, we do not hear it in that clip, but it seems as if Suare modified the command. What do you make of that?
Yes, when he received that instruction from his seniors, like he said, he set out for the bridge with his men. They went there, laid their ambush, took all the tactical positions that they needed to take at the time, and he was there waiting as their commander, waiting for the, Jami and his people. But what struck me was how he had that sudden change of mind, or do I say change of heart, modifying the command he received from his superiors, to telling his men that, we don't have the weapons the people have, according to him, so it's either we join them, or else that's it for us. This was what he said in his testimony, but you can see, afterwards from Chongan in his testimony that, in fact, even Sirif Gomez said the same thing, as well as Kante. It was surprising, how, he modified that command he received from his superiors to kill if necessary, stop them, intercept them in any way possible, to telling his people that it's better we join these people.
Yeah, yes, and apparently the protagonists were drunk. He said he wanted to avoid bloodshed. He said all of that, and gradually, Babukat, he led them to Banjul, showing them all the ambushes that were laid, that had been laid earlier. He showed them all of that, and that's what he said. He marched them to the State House.
Yes, according to his testimony, that's what he said. But we've seen two different people here, Suare and Chongan. They were all given orders, same orders. Same place. They went. Chongan actually fired a shot, according to him. And we heard another person who was at the police headquarters at the time who said, we heard Chongan fired a shot. So obviously Chongan is very brave here, and we kind of believe that what they say is true, because someone else, said that statement again. Suare went there, but I think for two reasons, in my own opinion. But first he said, what happened in 1981? I've seen it. So obviously Suare has made up his mind, because he knows what happened in 1981. So he wouldn't challenge these people that much, because he saw what happened in 1981. And again, this special relationship, even though others were saying, yeah, Jammeh is this, indisciplined, Sintok orders, but for Suare, he said, yeah, take orders from him. He has never been rude to him. And there is this kind of relationship between them. He brings his lunch, he signs his boots. So obviously, probably when Yaya taught, you remember, when this first batch came, Suare said he created a buffer between them and told them, stay away, about 100 meters, 200 meters until your leaders arrive. That's Yaya Jammeh and Co. And when they arrived, obviously he said he went and met Yaya. And what did Yaya say? I know it will be my father or my son who will be here, because he said they have the relationship where they call each other father and son. So even at the bridge, this is a serious note, but it started with some kind of sanawea, I can say, between Fula and Jola. I know you'll be at the bridge. And then Suare said they negotiated, and then, but it was so easy for him to tell his people, turn your berets and join them. And at that point, he said he left, even though he said in his mind, he didn't actually mean it. He said he went to find arms from the Marine headquarters to come and counter these people. But I wonder, who is he coming to fight these people with? Because you've already gave up. You've already surrendered your men. Now you went to find arms. If you get a truckload of arms, who will carry those arms for you to come and fight? And if you get people to fight for you, probably from police headquarters, who are you going to kill? Your own people you told to join, probably against their will. So you're going to kill them? So it's a very funny situation for me.
What would you make of Suare's antics, Mboge?
Frankly speaking, one sound bite from him makes me scratch my head. He said he would have been the president if he wanted to.
Yes.
How? Does he mean he would have eliminated Jammeh and co and then take it over himself?
Yes.
What does he mean?
He said the way Jammeh took power,
Yes.
if he wanted, he could have been president. I wonder how. Did Jammeh outmaneuver somebody else?
There are things, there are gaps in his, as far as I'm concerned. There are certain gaps that I would have loved him to really close. And that's the gap of, did he have any prior information that this was going to happen the next day and kept quiet about it? Because as we all heard from him, it didn't take a long discussion for him to turn his berry. So did he say, oh, are we carrying out what we discussed yesterday or day before yesterday or last year or whatever? And then he said yes, and then he says, let's join together. I'm not sure about that. I only know that he knows something about the planning of the coup, of what was happening on the 22nd July. Maybe he even knows what was to have happened on the 21st, when they were disarmed. So that bit is really where I think.
Yes, and when we put in there the testimony of the unidentified witness, that was very, very important. So because he said he was with the group with Yahya Jammeh, with the plotters. He was with the group with plotters. But once they got to Denton Bridge, he said, even the unidentified witness said he was surprised.
Yes.
There was hardly any discussion. They just had a talk, and suddenly all the soldiers, as if on cue, turned their barrels. He just lifted his arm, and everybody came out. And the idea that he led them to State House, the man said, what was the word the unidentified witness used? Ridiculous. He said it was a ridiculous idea that Suare led them to Banjul. Apparently not. What do you make of that?
I think it's important to note that at the time, as head of the tactical support group, Suare was also in charge of the armory at Fajara Barracks, and his men were well armed, all right? In his testimony, he said Jammeh and co were drunk, and they had this negotiation that happened, that took place at least for 30 minutes or an hour. But from the unidentified witness testimony, I mean, it's kind of, it's a different story. What he said was, there was hardly any discussion. It was so easy, so it happened so fast, so quick. And then Suarez said he ordered his men to turn their barrels. But according to the unidentified witness, it was Sabali that asked Suarez's men to turn their barrels. So you can see the contradiction here. I think for me, I have this feeling, maybe, just maybe, he might have had prior knowledge of what was about to happen. I think he must have been in the picture, because you remember in his statement when he said, when we got to State House, I told Lang Tombong at the time, I said, it's either you open that door or I will do it my way with my men. You remember that? So all of that, now, you were not part of it. All of a sudden, you're the one leading the team, and then you're even commanding the State Guard commander to say, if you don't, now it's not we, but I will do it my way with my men.
And that is probably where I would have been the president comes from. Because he thought he carried out the last most important part of the coup, which is access to State House. His men enabled Jammeh and his guys to access the State House. So I think perhaps this is what he meant by saying I could have been the president if I wanted.
He will not allow his genius
Exactly.
to leave him.
Exactly.
So that's why he would have been president.
Exactly.
But also, if we look at Denton Bridge, according to the anonymous witness, I mean, he said it was too easy for Suare to give him. One, and he said Sabali orders that let his men turn their berets. He said, although Suare said he didn't turn his beret, he left it as it is. But also, the anonymous witness said, Suare went as far as the cemetery. That was around Gambia High. And that's where he last saw Suare. That was the end. He said Suarez didn't go with them to State House. He didn't know where he go to.
That's the
where he went to. That's anonymous person.
Yes.
So there are conflicting reports here.
You know,
I might them to State House, but Suarez stopped. You know, so that man was actually, the anonymous witness was actually, I mean, say the way he spoke, like Suarez didn't do much, and Suarez didn't lead them to State House, according to him. So there are conflicting reports, and it's left to anyone to think what they want to think.
And there was something else with this unidentified witness. He said that on the 21st, when these people were disarmed, they were under house arrest. I think he used that. On the 22nd, there was somebody else agitating for them to go out. On their way to Banjul, they were they picked up Edward Singate, they said, they picked up Senasabili, they picked up Yahya Jammeh. This is quite fascinating. So who was this other figure? Or what was this other group? I think logically one can ask this. Who made such arrangements for on the 22nd? What do you think?
That is
fascinating.
That is $1 million question. I think it's obvious that a lot of people were involved in this. It's not just Jammeh or it's not just the group that had this meeting in Kodang and then the subsequent meeting in Yundum. I think there must have been other people behind the scenes also doing facilitating certain things. It's clear, it's obvious that it's not just that group.
Yes,
absolutely. It might have had its origin from Kudang and Yundum. I think, frankly, that, like Antoine has said, there have been some others who were involved in the planning. But the implementation, at the point of implementation, they might have chickened out. Yes. And Jammeh and co. thinking that, well, what have we got to lose? We are junior soldiers. Let's just do this. And like I said earlier, I don't think they were going to take over a government. They were going to make their case known to the president if he was there and then get something out of it. But, as it turned out, they got there and then halfway through, like I said, like you had just introduced, Suarez became also an important part of their plot. Because Suarez was sent to go and quell them. But he didn't do that. So I have a feeling that Suarez knew what they were up to. And he just wanted to make sure that he has a big part of it if it succeeds. And as you will see later, as they succeeded, Suarez could not get anything more than becoming a commissioner.
Yes, in fact, Suarez accepted, almost confessed,
but he did
to turning so many people. We'll just look at this final clip.
Let's try to recap what happened in July 22nd, 1994. You received your orders to Sutankel. You went to the bridge. You modified those orders. You negotiated with Jammeh and his followers. You agreed to join them. Correct?
Yes.
Reinforcement was sent from Bakau. You convinced them to join.
Reinforcement for the presidential guard. Let's make it a little bit different.
Yes, that's what I meant. Reinforcement for the presidential guard came forward. You convinced them to join. You convinced your own group to join. You convinced all the people set in the ambush to join. Confirm by saying yes or no.
Yes.
You convinced the last defense, Lieutenant Bineminte and his group to join, correct?
Yes.
You also convinced the lone guard you found at military headquarters to join, correct?
Yes.
You also convinced the state guards at Atlantic Road, at Old Atlantic Hotel to join, correct?
Yes.
You encouraged Langtombong Tamba to give up State House and join, correct?
Yes.
And the officer you found at the small door at State House, you convinced him to join, correct?
Yes.
You convinced them to open the gates, correct?
Yes.
Yes, gentlemen, we've just seen that. A series of yes to incriminating questions. Yes, 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 yes. Yet, he said he wasn't part of it. He thinks this happened on that day, on the 22nd of July at Denton Bridge. What do you make of that?
If the coup had failed, I believe Suare would have been arrested.
You suspect?
Yes. You know, I suspect he would have been arrested. Remember the instructions he was given by his superiors. He modified those instructions, facilitated the coup protest move from Denton Bridge to the State House. Like you said, yeah, I mean, he was saying yes, yes, yes to all those questions. You know, he convinced almost everyone on the way to to State House, all the way to State House. But you remember, during the fourth witness, when he was testifying, he said something very important. He said, as soon as he entered the State House, just to kind of add to what Wage was saying earlier, as soon as they entered the State House, Edward said to him, "We've done this thing, but we don't know what to do next." So it's clear the intention wasn't to overthrow the government, but to express their dissatisfaction, to make sure, I mean, the president is aware of, you know, their dissatisfaction, so their problems will be addressed. So it's quite interesting.
Yes, and Babukar, I hope you are not a Badibunka here, because he was appointed commissioner to go and take care of the Badibunkas.
Yes, to me, Suare took a big risk. Denton Bridge easily surrendered. You led the people, I mean, you led the soldiers, you know, I mean, foil all the ambushes, take everybody out, and then you lead them up to State House, and you even convince the people at State House to open the gates, and you went in with them. With all that, what position was he given? Commissioner. Why commissioner? I don't understand. With all the, I mean, if he has done so much, why just a commissioner? Why wasn't a minister? Why wasn't part of, I mean, core cabinet? So that's I don't understand that, to be honest with you.
Ibu, yes, let me just put in here quite a whole cluster of circumstances. I think perhaps that was the reasons why Jeng said, Abubakar Jeng, one of the witnesses, said it was a fluke. I hope you can see the sense in which he said that the success of the coup was a fluke.
Absolutely. You know, I think Jeng, having worked for the Gambia Police Force at the time, could look at it from a law and order point of view. The soldiers were not, but Jeng knew that the coup wouldn't have succeeded if certain things did not happen. A litany of things. And that is what the litany of questions that Suare was asked, that he did all that. Okay, if Suare was sent officially to go and quell the coup, and he ended up convincing all the others to join the coup, it means he must have been convinced that what he was joining was going to be good for him. And obviously, like Babakar said, all that he got was commissioner of North Bank. But at some point, he did say that he was offered the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and he rejected it at the earliest point of negotiation, at the bridge, if I remember him. You know, so I don't understand rejecting a Minister of Foreign Affairs at the hot material time, only to accept commissioner maybe months or weeks or I think years down the line.
After 2 years.
After 2 years, I think that was appointed after 2 years, and then he was also sacked from that position.
After that.
So,
fluke. If you look at the meaning of fluke, what do you think it is? Coincidence, kind of? Because if it is, according to...
Some element of luck.
Luck, yes.
Luck. Is in the concept of fluke.
Yeah, luck or probably coincidence. But I will see luck was... Because you know at the time, there should have been training at Denton Bridge. So obviously soldiers were prepared. And even if people see, I think he said it was announced, Even if
no, I think the opposite is true. The people were prepared,
yes,
but not the soldiers. But what exercise never took place.
Yes, but it was.
But the people, but there was an announcement on Radio Gambia the previous day that tomorrow, when people see activity all over, they shouldn't be surprised. There's an exercise between the American army and the Gambian army. That was announced all over the place. So everybody was prepared to see that. I myself was caught up in the action when I was going to Banjul on that fateful day. I was stopped, and the person I was with said to the police, the military man that stopped us, "Oh, we know you are on an exercise, please, just let us go."
So that was a good cover.
It was a good
cover.
cover.
Say that what was a brilliant
It was a
cover.
good cover. It was the best cover they could get.
Remember the identified witness said people were offering them water, some were giving them food.
That was quite a surprise to me when they
But
were going to
that was
Banjul,
when
people were
thought these people
clapping, and they thought
doing
that they
more
were
than
part of
just exercising.
the exercise. That's exactly, that explains it. That kind of gentlemen, we're really coming to the end of the program. There's one person though we haven't touched, Mamad Cham. So you covered that story. What was it? What was significant about it? What did he say?
I covered his testimony, and it's an interesting one. Some of the most, interesting, things that I picked up from his testimony is, one, his relationship with, members of the council. How after a few days, serving the council after a few days, and the role he played in the aftermath of the coup, helping them set up cabinet, identifying civilians who could potentially serve in cabinet, and in fact, personally going to meet some of these civilians, to give them offer of these ministerial positions, and also writing the speech, contributing to the writing of the speech that Jammeh read on radio. In fact, he said he went with Jammeh to Radio Gambia and instructed him as a senior man to say, you should read this speech, because Jammeh at some point suggested that he should read the speech since he's a senior man in the MS.
Yes, and we also know that he coined their name according to him. According to him, he coined the Armed Forces Provisional Ruling Council. Thank you very much, gentlemen. We could have gone on for God knows how long. The issues raised in these testimonies are numerous. We cannot exhaust them all. But I hope that we've given you the background to the beginning, the background of events to 1994. And we will continue. Every week we'll bring you a roundup, a summary of the goings on of the week. Thank you very much to my panel again, Ansumana Esewenyase of QTV, Ibu Wage of TRRC, and Babukar Sise of QTV. I am Mboge. Thank you very much.